Muhanad is a criminologist by training. He has an MA in comparative criminology and criminal justice from the University of Angkor. His research interest covers labeling terrorists, mechanism of securitization, conflict resolution, and ethno-sectarian conflict. In his PhD thesis, he examined the relationship between designated terrorist groups and levels of violence in ethnic conflicts. Currently, he is managing director and founding member of the Iraqi Research Network.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sabah. So I have been working on this research project for several months now, and Dr. Cengiz covered quite a bit on the topic of the structure of the political structure of the parties in Iran, Kurdish parties. But I would like to step back and look at the Kurds in Iran in a different way, because there are some academics out there and commentators who argue that there is no Kurdish issue in Iran. Actually, some could go far enough to say that Kurds have been integrated into Iranian society and there is no Kurdish problem whatsoever. That's why we don't see Kurds oppressed on our daily news. Kurds in Iran are all right. So I would like to start off with the two questions. So the research questions. Is there a Kurdish issue in Iran at all? Are Kurds politically engaged in Iran? So to situate the research in the broader context, as my colleague here, and we're not going to overlap in the research because we're looking at the very same topic. It depends who you ask, but Kurds, they form roughly 7 to 9 millions of the 80 millions population of Iran, around 12 to 15%. Kurds are the second largest ethnic group after the Azeris. So Kurds form a sizable minority in Iran, and apparently we don't hear much about them. So why we don't hear much about the Kurds, we will have the answer later. But let's look at Kurds in the broader sense of the greater Kurdistan. It's in the because we have Kurds in Iran, we have Kurds in Iraq, and we have Kurds in Syria and in Turkey. They are scattered all around, but geographically they live in areas that form one geographical land. Kurds, activist Kurds themselves, most of them claim that this is a greater Kurdistan. So Iranian Kurdistan, or Eastern Kurdistan, which is the part in Iran, Rojihalat Kurdistani, is an unofficial name for the parts of northeastern western Iran inhabited by Kurds, which borders Iraq and Turkey, and which is literally next door to the KRG or KRI, the Kurdistan Regional Government or Kurdistan Regional Government of Iraq. Kurds generally consider Iranian Kurdistan, Eastern Kurdistan, to be one of the 4 parts of a greater Kurdistan, which also includes parts of southern Turkey, northern Kurdistan, northern Syria, western Kurdistan, and northern Iraq, southern Kurdistan. If we look at the map here, and we see here that this is the unofficial map of Greater Kurdistan, which spans the southern Turkey, northeastern Syria, and northern Iraq, and actually quite a bit of Iran. So this is the Greater Kurdistan. Geographically, it's one part, and it's interesting that we have Kurdish political activism that's in southern Turkey, which is northern Kurdistan, where we have the PKK, we have the HDP, we have so many groups in Turkey. Actually, it's very well known, the Kurdish issue in Turkey, and it's just going on now. And the peace process that was announced in 2012 by the AKP, the ruling Turkish party, just collapsed recently. It has been pronounced dead. And if we look at Syria, actually, there is quite a development. Now we have the YPG almost declaring self-rule, and they are fighting ISIS. They took advantage of the failing state in Syria so successfully. We look in Iraq, and also after 2000, even before 2003, but after 2003, of the collapse of the government in Baghdad, Kurds rose up, and now Kurdistan is a semi-independent state. It's not a federal state or an autonomous state. It's actually a semi-independent. It's undeclared independent state, let me say. And then, so we have the two parts. Now we look at Iran. We don't hear much about Iran, and some of the commentators say that the Kurds were integrated. Let's also look at history. Why Kurds in Iran, or Kurdistan of Iran, is important. We hear commentators speaking about an independent Kurdish state. This question comes up almost every month somewhere at a conference, maybe at the White House, in Kurdistan, in Iraq, in the UK. We hear that are Kurds going to have their own independent state? Have they ever had their independent state? Well, they had it. It was very short-lived, and it's called Mahabad, and it was in Iran, or today's Iran. So on the 1st of January 1946, Mahabad city was declared the capital of the Mahabad Republic. But let's look why it rose up then. The conditions in the Middle East and in Iran specifically during that time, after the Second World War, were ripe for Kurds to rise and for Mahabad to declare independence. It's in a way similar to the conditions of the Middle East today. So we have the KRG in Iraq, the Kurdistan Regional Government, rising up, and now I think the KRG is planning a referendum in the near future to declare independence. Some argue that it's taken advantage of the fragile state of the Middle East and fragile state of Iraq. And we look also at Syria, the Kurdistan in Syria. They are also going the same path. But in Turkey and in Iran, things are different, because the central state in Tehran and in Ankara is very strong. But Turkey is much bigger, and Turkey has the PKK, which is a militant group. It has been dislodged, and now they are in Iraq mostly, in Kandil Mountains. But on the Iranian side, we don't hear much. There are different reasons for that. The Iranian government was successful to integrate Kurds into the local government, like on the level of municipality. And the Iranian government form or form of governance is different from Turkey. And Turkey has more space for Kurdish activists to rise, and also because of the Turkish relationship with Europe, so there is some space there. And also the ideology of the PKK is more of a militant than of a political activist. So we look back then, throughout the early 1940s, the greater Iranian Kurdistan experienced a number of uprisings, and this conforms from southern Turkey, northern Syria, northern Iraq as well. And this is where we find Mullah Mustafa Barzani actually was involved in the Mahabad state. He was with Qazi Muhammad, the president of Mahabad, as his military commander. Mahabad had historically been a center of Kurdish nationalist sentiment, represented the core of the Kurdish independence movement. You can hardly miss the name Mahabad in any Kurdish literature, just anywhere. If you read, you would definitely come across the word Mahabad. So it has that symbolic importance for Kurds, yet we don't hear much about it, about Kurdistan of Iran in the news. We go back to the main question. So do we have a Kurdish issue in Iran? Well, we have political parties. My colleague Cengiz mentioned that we have the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, which is the KDPI. We have the Party of a Free Life of Kurdistan, PJAK, and we have other Kurdish youth-led asymmetric groups. And these groups were inspired by the Arab Spring and the technology. So now, because there are more information shared through social media, so this is a new form of, let me say, rebellion against the central government in Iran. Yet we don't have much information about it, even because Iran has strict rules allowing academic researchers to go down and interview people, interview Kurds, etc. So are Kurds politically engaged in Iran? So are they really integrated into the political life in Iran? Well, as I mentioned, that this research has been going on for some time, so it's still work in progress, and I would very much appreciate your feedback. However, my analysis so far show Kurdish national movement in Iranian Kurdistan is a grassroots youth and civil society-led movement rather than as a result of political party influence. And I'm talking about the latest over the last 5 years. So what kind of political activism is out there? It's actually mainly youth-led because the main political parties like the KDPI and the PJAK is a US designated terrorist group, so that's very limiting. And also, as my colleague Cengiz mentioned, the Iranian government almost successfully wiped out most of the PJAK fighters. Kurds in Iran are more involved in local politics than, as I mentioned, that they are actually they're more involved. The Kurds are more involved in the their local politics, but they are ineffective in the Iranian parliament because of the structure of the Iranian government. It's quite complicated. So Iran has supposedly a democracy, elected president, etc., but they have also the Ayatollah, who has powers that they could actually render the parliament and the presidency and everything else ineffective. Kurds are making use of the space that is available to them, fueled by technology and the rise of information sharing. And this not only covers the youth-led groups, but also other parties, PJAK, the KDPI. They are trying to use technology to their advantage. PJAK, an organization believed to be connected to the PKK, which is the Kurdistan Workers' Party, began an armed struggle in 2004, attempting to influence the Iranian Kurds to rise up against the state. You could see here that PJAK and other groups, they are trying to push Kurds to, let me say, reconnect with their ethnic identity, to rise up against the status quo of Kurdistan in Iran, let me say, the eastern part of Kurdistan. My analysis doesn't show that these groups have been very successful so far. They have made some progress, but they are not there yet. The KDPI remains the most recognized party, articulating the interest of the Iranian Kurds. True, but they are also not part of the governance structure of Iran. So their calls for a federal state or more the divulging of power is not effective yet because they're not part of the Iranian government and they are not a militant group. The future of Kurds in Iran will be directly affected by developments in other parts of the Greater Kurdistan, which is very true. So now Kurds in Iran, they're watching what is happening in Iraq and how Kurds are gaining their independence. They have oil, they manage their resources. They are more proud, let me say, of their identity. They have their schools, universities, etc., and also in Rojava, which is in Syria. So also the Syrians there, the Kurds in Syria, they are more now in control. They get direct support from the West. So these developments, Kurds in Iran are watching, and they want to see what is their share in the future? Are they going to be part of that, or would they join the other two parts? And also, this is, it's within my research interest, but I'm not going to talk about it today. Kurds in Turkey, the same. So the latest developments in the last 3 years, if you keep an eye on the PKK rhetoric, they actually grew more extreme in their demands. They're saying that we need to have these, and we're not going to sit with the Turkish government unless our demands are guaranteed. So that's the end of it. I think the Kurds in Iran, they are going to wait for the other two parts and see what is going to happen there, and this will shape the political rhetoric of the Kurds in Iran, and including KDPI. I see more. This is where my research points. I see more groups, youth-led groups, taking responsibility for to negotiate with the Iranian government to get more rights and to devolution of power than the KDPI and the PJAK. Thank you very much.